Wednesday I have.
Okay.
next
I will.
I have
I will let you know. I'm trying to find out. That's why I'm trying to get people registered for classes by Friday,
Jury
so
duty.
that I can let you know maybe sometime over the weekend
Yeah,
what the
potentially.
plan is going to be for next week, so that you have at least a few days' notice. All right. Well, for today,
I know doubles, it's just that
we are going to
don't
get
always use
into
only
signals.
doubles.
Or carding. We use those terms interchangeably. And I mentioned earlier in the class in an earlier week, remember that our discussion of leads and our discussion of signals are totally separate things. And these are not, leads are not subject to standard versus upside down or any other carding gadgets that you might play if you have dabbled with something like odd even or one of those other, that's all carding, and that's what we're doing today. So we want to talk about the different types of signals and when we use those signals. If not, don't worry about it. So, just something to think about for a little later. So, because I wanted to add another hand if there was time. So, carding is this is your legal form of table talk. This is where you can use your signals by the cards you play, not kicks under the table, not glares, not stare downs, not big heavy size, but actually,
Thanks for all the tips.
actually the card that you are playing to communicate, and this is one of your defensive tools, and you should take advantage of it. Now, I know that it's really hard to pay attention to every card, and so we want to simplify this as much as possible, because almost none of us remembers, every single card. We all have that moments like, is the 7 good? You can't remember if she played the 8 or not, all right? Or you can't remember if it, had a hand in it lesson last night where one of my students tried to go set in a hand that was made, and then the defense handed it back to her, and it was a situation where there were 4 hearts in the dummy, and she had started with 3 hearts in her hand. The suit broke 3-3. No idea that the suit broke 3-3. Completely forgot about it. It was ancient history. So the 8 of hearts on the dummy was good. But she didn't remember that. So she tried to rough it. This is hard stuff to keep track of. And so we do want to simplify it as much as possible. And so hopefully what we can do is get you to tune in to the most important signals. When you make your opening lead and the dummy comes down, partner's signal at trick 1 is very important. This may guide the defense for the whole hand, now that you've had a chance to see the dummy and get a signal from partner. The first discard opportunity, the first time either you or your partner can't follow to a suit that the player has led, this is an opportunity, if you're not winning the trick, to signal. And these become some of your most important signals. So you definitely want to use these as much as you can to your advantage. And a couple more just general notes about your signaling and about your defense. Stick to your system as much as possible. Don't freelance or get cute or false card on defense in a situation where it might cause partner to go wrong. Because while you may think you're fooling declare, if you're fooling partner with a false card, it might cause your partner to misdefend. So I think you want your carding to be as honest as possible most of the time, so the partner gets this right. And the other thing is, as much as we'd like you to use signals, if you absolutely know what the right line of defense is, you're not obligated to pay attention to partner's signal. It's like, what if you think, well, I've gotten off to the right lead and I know I need to keep leading this suit. And then partner encourages you in another suit. Because partner thinks that you should be leading something different. Well, sure, note the signal, take that into account, But if you know that that's not the right line of defense and that you're on the right line of defense, and you can control that because you've got the lead, go ahead and do what needs to be done. Sometimes it is very clear to one defender and not as clear to another defender. And your partner may think, you know, well, the ace queen of clubs are in dummy, and I have the king. I need partner to lead through. Partner's got to lead through those honors, you know, so that I can score my king. And I may be over here on the other side of the table saying, okay, well, you know, if DeClaire has a couple of cards in that suit, I know that partner, if partner has the king, that card's never going away, then I'm already on the right track with the defense. So we actually had a hand like that late in the game today, where we were able to force DeClaire, got a chance to use the forcing defense that we talked about last time. And I knew that it was the right line of defense, and so I persisted. And Denise, frankly, I didn't care what the card was. I was not paying attention to your signals. Because I knew they didn't matter.
Okay, you just
Now,
say-
it's not always that
Pay
clear.
attention,
Sometimes
but
partner
none.
needs help. Sometimes the defense is very tricky. And you need the help. So, one of the things, and here we're talking mainly about attitude, and we'll get into the different types of signals, but most of our signals are going to be attitude. And we'll talk about the count situations, and we'll talk about the super preference situations. But I think it's going to be easiest for all of you to rely mostly on attitude. I've known some old school players who hardly use any attitude, and they want to count all of the time. Well, you know, if you're a math whiz, if you've got the photographic memory, whatever, if you've got that skill and you think the most important thing, and you can keep track of the distribution of all four hands at the table, power to you. I can't do that very well, and I suspect many of you struggle with that too. So trying to use count too often, I don't think it's going to be helpful, right? Because it's too hard to keep track of. Attitude's a lot easier to keep track of, and I feel like it's your most useful signal anyhow. So when we talk about an attitude signal, we're talking about either encouraging or discouraging a suit that partner is leading, right? And there are actually three pieces to this, whether or not you encourage or discourage. And we'll get to an example a little later that I think will make this much more clear. So, and we're talking mainly about opening lead here, but it could apply at other intervals during the hand as well. If partner has made the best lead, you should be encouraging that, right? If partner's made a lead, you've got something in that suit. Partner leads the ace, presumably from ace king. Dummy has three little, and you have the queen. You think, oh, we might cash three tricks in this suit, right? Let's go ace, let's go king, and let's have a third round. That would be a situation where you feel like partner got off to a good lead and you want to encourage, right? That's pretty easy to see. This is the one that's not as easy to see. It's funny, my notes said, this is the word I used. Maybe it's a little over dramatic. But a switch could be fatal. I don't think anyone's actually going to die at the table as a result of a bad lead or a bad switch. So maybe disastrous or catastrophic. I don't know. Fatal may be over the top. Sometimes you don't necessarily love the lead that partner made. You don't have anything in that suit, but you tell partner to continue anyhow. Because switching to a different suit, especially if partner
Never thought of it that way.
switches to a suit and leads away from an honor, and you don't have anything in that other suit the partner switches to, now you may be costing your side a trick. And a classic situation for that sort of thing might be, like, let's say partner leads ace from ace king whatever, right? Well, you might think that if you're sitting across the table with three small in that suit, that you shouldn't encourage. It's like, well, you know, if I encourage, partner's gonna think I have queen, right? And then partner will be mad when I don't have the queen, when I said, no, yeah, go ahead, keep leading that suit. The thing to keep in mind is that discouraging signals are much more powerful than encouraging signals. Encouraging signals can actually be, sometimes you encourage when you're trying to be more neutral. Discouraging signal carries more weight, all right? Discouraging signal is, partner, I really need you to switch, and there's urgency. If you don't do this now, we may not get the tricks we have coming. And the Halls talk about this in their book. So, if you're going to discourage, then you better be really sure that you want a switch. And so that is part 3. Discourage, and discourage means you're giving negative attitude. No, partner, I don't like that. Lead. Discourage when a switch to another suit is necessary. Now, of course, we get into that territory when you decide to discourage and you tell partner, I really need you to lead something else. Well, what's that something else? How does partner know what to switch to? Has anybody ever heard of the obvious shift principle? There's a book that is unfortunately, I think that's been out of print for a long time. You might find used copies from the Granovetters, called A Switch in Time. That book is dedicated to what they call the obvious shift principle. They actually have pretty detailed parameters for how you decide what suit you should be shifting to. But to simplify it, usually you're shifting the dummy's weakest suit. The suit where dummy has, 3 small, jack third, queen third, some pretty weak holding. And that is usually enough to help you. Say if one suit is trump, and then partner has, say spades are trump, and partner's led a heart. And you discourage the heart. You say, partner, go away. Don't need any more hearts. And partner's got to figure out, well, do I switch to a club or do I switch to a diamond? Your best guide is going to be what's in the dummy. Switch to whatever dummy's weakest holding is. If dummy's got a decent 4 or 5 card suit, that's probably not the suit you want to switch to. You probably want to switch to the other. It's not always clear, right?
So would that be if your partner's on the right side is east and dummy is north, then you're leading toward the weakness. But if your partner's over here, you don't want to lead.
We're talking about situations where the opening leader wins the opening lead.
Okay, so then
And
they're on
remains
the
on
left
lead.
of the dummy. Yeah.
What's that?
So they're on the right of the dummy, or the.
The person who's signaling is sitting over the dummy. Yes.
Okay.
When we get some examples, you'll
That
see
doesn't
it'll
make
be a little
sense.
more clear.
I would think the other way.
Now, it's not always going to be easy to tell when you need to
Then I
switch
would
what you
use this
what
one.
you should switch to, right? If partner's led a heart and dummy has queen third of diamonds and queen third of clubs, you're guessing, right? Maybe hard to tell what you should be shifting to. Flip a coin, I guess, right? So, but the main idea here is don't be so quick to discourage. Really try to think this through at trick 1.
I think if they're on this side.
And this may even be for later, right? What if partner leads a king, presumably from king-queen, and your side doesn't have the ace? Okay, you may not be winning trick 1. The defense may not be winning it. Maybe declare wins the trick. But your signal still matters for when one of you does game later, right? So you play your king, you knock out the ace. This is still a signaling opportunity, right? One thing that I do want to mention, because people always ask about it, our premise for what we're talking about today is standard carding. It doesn't necessarily matter whether you play standard or upside down, because everything we talk about today, all the same rules apply. When we talk about standard carding or upside down carding, that will influence both attitude and count, but your mode of operation is going to be the same. So the only difference is, which card you are playing, right? But the situation that calls for, if you want to encourage, you want to get positive attitude, okay, so you're playing the biggest card you can afford in standard carding, and if you happen to be playing upside down, you play the smallest card. As long as you are conveying the meaning that you want to convey. A lot of people ask me about, well, should we play standard or should we play upside down? That is a matter of preference. I prefer upside down. A lot of experts prefer upside down, and some will even tell you that it's superior, and yet many of them still play standard. It's just a bit of an adjustment. I find that it can be difficult to go back and forth between standard and upside down. So if you play with a lot of different partners, and some like standard and some like upside down, that can get a little involved. If I had to recommend one, I would recommend upside down. But you are always going to run into some hands where you have a carding problem, right? And that's like let's say you get into a situation where a partner leads an ace, and you're sitting over here with king 3 deuce. All right, and you want to encourage, right? Oh, okay, partner led the ace. Apparently it wasn't from ace king because you have the king. Well, partner found this lead, and you want to say, oh yeah, continue, good lead, partner. All right, well, what card do you play from this holding under partner's ace to encourage? Well, you play the 3. That's the most encouraging signal you can come up with, right? You have been cursed with 2 small spots, and partner may have a hard time reading them, right? I mean, we didn't conveniently get dealt king 8-2, where we had a clear choice to play the 8 or play the 2, right? If you happen to be playing upside down, you don't have a carding problem, do you? You play the deuce. And if partner can't figure out in upside down that the deuce is encouraging, that's partner's fault. Because partner thinks that there's a card in the deck lower than the deuce, and then you got bigger problems, right? On the other hand, what if you're playing upside down and you are cursed with that holding? King 9-8, and you want to encourage. What's your most encouraging card? And upside down, you got to play the small. If you're playing standard, no problem. You just play the 9, and partner can figure that out. So the idea here is that it doesn't necessarily matter, because we can't predict when you are going to have a carding problem, and when the spot cards you hold are going to suit the system you're playing and when they're not. You're just going to have to live with the fact that you won't always be able to card exactly as you want to. All right. Okay for me to erase this stuff and move on to our signal types? All right. So we really have, say, we're talking about four types of signals. I mean, there's really three types, but there's a fourth category here. All right, so attitude. As we were talking about, this is just, I like it or I don't. Partner, I encourage you to continue. Partner, I discourage you from continuing. This is a binary situation. And so again, since we're just using standard carding as the baseline here, a high card encourages, a low card discourages. And then again, if we happen to be playing upside down, we just flip-flop those balls. That's the only thing that's different. you always signal as clearly as you can without sacrificing a card that might take a trip. So, you know, if your spot cards are 10, 9, 7, and you want to encourage, go ahead and play the 10, because you can afford